The signal arrived at the Zalathi listening post on a quiet Tuesday morning. A junior technician named Koro was monitoring the deep space scanners when his equipment picked up something unusual. Radio waves. Not random cosmic noise, but organized patterns that could only mean one thing: intelligent life. Koro leaned forward in his chair and adjusted the controls. The signals were coming from a small yellow star about 50 light-years away. He had found a new species, and according to his readings, they were trying to communicate with each other using primitive radio technology. "Sir," Koro called to his supervisor, "I think you should see this." Supervisor Thane walked over and looked at the data. He nodded slowly. "Another primitive species. Mark it down and send the report to command. They will decide what to do with them." The report traveled through the Zalathi military system for 3 weeks before it reached Admiral Kethvar's desk. Admiral Kethvar was one of the most powerful beings in the Zalathi Empire. He commanded fleets that had conquered hundreds of worlds and destroyed countless civilizations. His office was filled with trophies from defeated enemies and maps showing the Empire's vast territory. Admiral Kethvar barely glanced at the report. "Radio signals," he said to himself. How pathetic. He had seen this many times before. Young species always started with radio waves before moving to better technology. Most never got past this stage before the Empire found them. The Admiral called for his aide. "Schedule these humans for resource extraction in 200 cycles. By then, our expansion will reach their sector anyway." But there was one person who disagreed with this quick decision. Dr. Yenna was the Empire's best xenobiologist. Her job was to study alien species and understand how they worked. When she saw the report about humans, she asked for permission to study them more closely. Dr. Yenna spent months watching Earth through the Empire's long-range scanners. What she saw worried her. These humans were different from other species the Empire had encountered. They were changing and growing faster than anything she had ever seen. In just 50 years of observation, humans went from basic radio to television to computer networks. They split the atom and built nuclear weapons. They put machines in orbit around their planet and sent probes to explore their star system. Most impressive of all, they were doing it while fighting wars among themselves. Dr. Yenna wrote detailed notes about everything she observed. She watched humans solve problems in ways that surprised her. When faced with challenges, they didn't just adapt to their environment like other species. Instead, they changed their environment to fit their needs. They built cities in deserts, farms in frozen lands, and machines that could survive in the vacuum of space. What worried Dr. Yenna most was how humans approached conflict. Other intelligent species fought in predictable patterns. Humans did not. They used tricks, surprises, and weapons in ways no one expected. They turned peaceful tools into deadly weapons. They combined different technologies in creative ways that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Dr. Yenna also noticed something else. Humans learned from every mistake. When their early rockets exploded, they built better ones. When their first computers were huge and slow, they made them smaller and faster. Each failure taught them something new, and they never made the same mistake twice. After a year of study, Dr. Yenna wrote a massive report. It was 847 pages long and filled with detailed observations, charts, and predictions. The title was clear: Urgent Threat Assessment. Species Classification. Human. Immediate action required. In her report, Dr. Yenna explained why humans were dangerous. They learned too fast. They adapted too quickly. They solved problems in ways that broke all known patterns. Most importantly, they had something the Empire had never seen before: the ability to improve beyond their natural limits. This species does not simply evolve, Dr. Yenna wrote in her conclusion. They deliberately transform themselves and their world. They do not accept limits. They break them. If given time to develop, they will become a threat unlike anything the Empire has faced. Dr. Yenna recommended 3 options. First, immediate contact and peaceful integration under strict Imperial oversight. Second, complete quarantine to prevent their development. Third, immediate extermination, while they were still weak enough to defeat easily. Under no circumstances, she wrote, should this species be ignored. The report landed on Admiral Kethvar's desk on the same day he was preparing for a campaign against the Nexus Rebellion. He was busy planning the deployment of 300 warships to crush a coalition of 12 species that had dared to challenge Imperial rule. Admiral Kethvar looked at Dr. Yenna's thick report and sighed. He read the first page, which was just a summary of her findings. Another alarmist scientist, he muttered. Seeing threats where none exist. He flipped through a few more pages, looking at charts and graphs he didn't understand or care about. The Admiral had conquered 47 different species in his career. Some had been more advanced than these humans. Some had been more aggressive. All had fallen before Imperial might. Admiral Kethvar filed Dr. Yenna's report in a folder marked Negligible Threats, Low Priority. He never read past the summary page. In his mind, humans were just another primitive species that would be swept aside when the Empire was ready to expand into their region. That evening, Admiral Kethvar attended a celebration dinner for his latest victory. The Empire had just finished absorbing the Krath Confederacy, adding another 12 star systems to Imperial territory. During the dinner, he mentioned the human discovery to his fellow officers. Another radio-using species, he told them. Dr. Yenna thinks they might be dangerous. The officers laughed. Radio technology was thousands of years behind Imperial standards. The idea that such primitives could threaten the mighty Zalathi Empire was ridiculous. Meanwhile, 50 light-years away, humans continued to grow and change. They built better computers and faster ships. They developed new materials and more powerful weapons. They started planning missions to other stars and dreaming of exploring the galaxy. Dr. Yenna continued watching them from her laboratory. Every day, she saw new developments that confirmed her fears. Humans were not just another species. They were something the galaxy had never seen before, and the Empire was giving them time to become unstoppable. But nobody was listening to her warnings. The prototype they ignored was growing stronger every day. 50 years passed like a blink of an eye for the Zalathi Empire. For Admiral Kethvar, now older but still commanding Imperial fleets, it was time to collect on an old schedule. The expansion plan called for harvesting the Sol system, and he had dispatched 12 dreadnoughts for what should be a simple operation. Captain Zex-High commanded the harvester fleet from his flagship, the Dominant Will. He had done this job many times before. Arrive at a primitive world, demand surrender, eliminate any resistance, and begin resource extraction. The species called humans were expected to put up about as much fight as children with sticks. Captain Zex-High reviewed the old files during the journey. Radio technology, primitive nuclear weapons, basic spaceflight. The intelligence was 50 years old, but that didn't matter. Species this primitive took thousands of years to advance significantly. These humans would probably still be using chemical rockets and copper wires. When the Zalathi fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, Captain Zex-High expected to see a quiet star system with maybe a few satellites around the third planet. Instead, his scanners lit up with thousands of contacts. Captain, his sensor officer reported, I'm detecting massive orbital structures around the third planet. There are also installations around the fourth planet and several moons. Sir, they have ships moving throughout the entire system. Captain Zex-High stared at the display. This was impossible. The humans should barely have reached their own moon by now. Instead, they had built cities in space and spread across their entire star system. Analysis, Captain Zex-High ordered. Sir, I'm reading fusion power signatures, quantum communication networks, and what appears to be matter conversion facilities. These are not primitive technologies. Captain Zex-High felt a cold sensation in his stomach. These readings indicated a civilization far more advanced than expected. But orders were orders. The Empire did not retreat from primitive species, no matter how much they had grown. Open communication channels, he commanded. Standard subjugation protocol. The message was broadcast in multiple languages that Imperial computers had learned from intercepted human transmissions. Attention human civilization. You are now subjects of the Zalathi Empire. Surrender all military assets and prepare for imperial administration. Resistance will result in complete extermination. The human response came back faster than expected. A voice speaking clear, Zalathi answered. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Your threats are rejected. Leave our system immediately or face the consequences. Captain Zexhai was shocked. Not only had they responded in perfect Zalathi, but they had refused imperial demands. No primitive species had ever done that. Impossible, he muttered. How do they know our language? Sir, his communication officer said. They've been monitoring our transmissions for decades. Our own communications gave them our language. Sir. Captain Zexhai decided to end this quickly. All ships, battle formation. Prepare to demonstrate imperial power. But as the 12 Zalathi dreadnoughts moved into attack position, something unexpected happened. The humans didn't panic or surrender. Instead, they began coordinating a response that showed military discipline and tactical thinking. Human ships emerged from behind asteroids, orbital stations, and moon bases. They weren't primitive chemical rockets. These were fusion-powered vessels with advanced armor and weapons that shouldn't exist. Captain, his weapons officer reported, the human ships are armed with particle beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic impactors. These are military-grade weapons. The first engagement was a shock. Human ships attacked in coordinated groups, using tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. They used their own space stations as shields, then detonated them as weapons when Zalathi ships got close. They turned mining equipment into missile platforms and cargo haulers into ramming vessels. Most disturbing was their willingness to sacrifice themselves. When a human ship was damaged beyond repair, its crew would aim it at the nearest Zalathi vessel and accelerate to ramming speed. Several times, Captain Zexhai watched human pilots deliberately fly into his ship's weapon fire to get close enough for a killing blow. These tactics are insane, his tactical officer said. They're fighting like wild animals. No, Captain Zexhai corrected, watching another human ship transform from a peaceful cargo vessel into a weapons platform. They're fighting like they have nothing to lose. The battle that should have lasted hours stretched into days, then weeks. Human resistance was fiercer than anything in Captain Zexhai's experience. Worse, they were learning from every exchange. During the first week, human attacks were clumsy and poorly coordinated. By the second week, they were anticipating Zalathi tactics and countering them effectively. By the third week, they were using captured Imperial technology to upgrade their own weapons. Captain Zexhai watched in horror as a human engineering team cut apart a disabled Zalathi fighter and somehow installed its power core into one of their own ships. Within hours, that ship was performing maneuvers that matched Imperial capabilities. Captain, his science officer reported, the humans are reverse engineering our technology faster than should be possible. They're not just copying it. They're improving it. The breaking point came during the fourth week. 3 Zalathi dreadnoughts had been destroyed, and the rest were taking heavy damage. Captain Zexhai realized something that chilled him to his core. The humans were winning. Sir, his communication officer said, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Kethvar. He's demanding a status report. Captain Zexhai didn't want to make that call. How could he explain that 12 Imperial dreadnoughts were being defeated by a species that was supposed to be primitive? How could he tell the Admiral that humans had somehow become a serious military threat in just 50 years? The final humiliation came when human boarding parties captured one of his escort ships. They didn't just take prisoners. They downloaded the ship's entire computer system and learned Imperial military codes, fleet positions, and tactical procedures. Captain, his security chief reported, they've compromised our entire communication network. They know everything about our fleet operations. Captain Zexhai made the hardest decision of his career. All ships, withdraw to safe distance. We need reinforcements. As the remaining Zalathi ships retreated, Admiral Sarah Chen sent one final message. Captain Zexhai, Tell your empire that humanity is no longer the species you remember. We've had 50 years to prepare for this day. If you come back, we'll be ready. Captain Zexhi's report to Admiral Kethvar was the most difficult document he had ever written. 3 Imperial dreadnoughts destroyed. Hundreds of crew members dead or captured. Advanced human technology that matched or exceeded Imperial capabilities. A coordinated defense that suggested unified military command across the entire species. Admiral Kethvar read the report 3 times before he believed it. He immediately ordered Captain Zexhi to return to Imperial space for debriefing. Then he did something he had never done before. He pulled Dr. Yenna's old report from the archives and read every single page. Dr. Yenna had been right about everything. The humans were not just another primitive species. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. And now they were angry. Admiral Kethvar stood in his war room, staring at a holographic display of the Sol system. The humiliation of Captain Zexhi's defeat still burned in his mind. In 300 years of military service, no primitive species had ever destroyed Imperial dreadnoughts. These humans had changed everything. Assemble the 9th Fleet, Admiral Kethvar commanded his staff. 200 dreadnoughts, 50 orbital bombardment platforms, and full biological warfare capabilities. We will turn their star system into cosmic dust. His aide looked concerned. Sir? 200 dreadnoughts for a single star system? That's enough firepower to destroy entire civilizations. Exactly, Admiral Kethvar replied coldly. These humans have proven they cannot be trusted to surrender peacefully. We will demonstrate what happens to species that defy the Empire. But while the Admiral prepared his massive fleet, humans were doing what they did best. Adapting and preparing. The 50 years since first contact had not been wasted. Every day, human scientists and engineers worked to understand Zalathi technology and improve upon it. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenotechnology specialist, studied the wreckage from the first battle. The Zalathi power systems are efficient, she told her team, but they're designed for reliability, not performance. We can make them run 30% hotter and get 50% more output. Meanwhile, Admiral Sarah Chen coordinated the most ambitious military project in human history. Every nation, every corporation, every resource on Earth, and throughout the Sol system, was dedicated to one goal: survival. We can't fight them ship to ship, Admiral Chen explained to the United Earth Defense Council. They have superior numbers and technology. But we have something they don't understand. Unity, born from desperation. Humanity had done something that shocked the Zalathi intelligence analysts. In the face of extermination, every human government had dissolved their armies and combined them into a single military force. Corporations shared their most guarded secrets. Scientists from rival nations worked side by side. The entire species had become one organism focused on survival. The human strategy was unlike anything in Imperial military history. Instead of building massive space stations and fleets to meet the Empire head-on, humans went underground. Literally, using mining equipment and fusion torches, humans carved vast bases inside asteroids, moons, and even planets. They built mobile shipyards that could be hidden behind gas giants or in the outer system's ice clouds. Most importantly, they connected everything with quantum communication networks that the Empire couldn't detect or intercept. When Admiral Kethvar's massive fleet arrived at Sol, they found what appeared to be a nearly empty star system. Earth's orbital stations were gone. The obvious military installations had been abandoned. Only a few scattered ships remained, and they immediately fled toward the outer system. It appears they have evacuated, reported Fleet Captain Nextar from his flagship. Shall we proceed with planetary bombardment? Admiral Kethvar studied the sensor readings. Something felt wrong. These humans had fought fiercely just months before. Why would they abandon their home world without a fight? Begin systematic scanning, he ordered. I don't trust this retreat. That's when the real battle began. The humans hadn't retreated. They had simply changed the rules of engagement. The first attack came from what appeared to be a small asteroid. As Imperial ships moved into bombardment position around Earth, the asteroid suddenly came alive with weapon fire. It was a hidden military base that had been disguised as Space Rock. Before the Zalathi could respond, more asteroids revealed themselves as camouflaged fortresses. The humans had turned the entire Sol system into a defensive maze. Every moon, every asteroid, every piece of space debris was a potential threat. Impossible, Admiral Kethvar muttered, as his fleet came under attack from directions they couldn't even see. How did they build so much in so little time? Dr. Yenna, now elderly and brought out of retirement, watched the battle from her laboratory. Because they don't think like us, she explained to her assistant. We build to last for centuries. They build to serve an immediate need, then rebuild when that need changes. They can construct an entire base in the time it takes us to plan one. The siege of Earth became a nightmare for Imperial forces. Human bases appeared and disappeared like ghosts. When the Zalathi destroyed one installation, 2 more would attack from different positions. The humans had turned guerrilla warfare into an art form in space. Worse, the humans were stealing Imperial technology faster than ever. They captured disabled ships, downloaded computer systems, and somehow reverse-engineered advanced Zalathi equipment in a matter of days instead of years. Sir, reported the fleet's chief engineer, the humans are now using our own plasma torpedo designs against us. But they've modified them somehow. They're more powerful than our originals. Admiral Kethvar realized that humanity was doing something unprecedented. They were learning from the enemy while fighting them. Every battle made them stronger, instead of weaker. Then came the real shock. Human forces began appearing outside the Sol system. Fleet Captain Mexhai was commanding a supply convoy 3 star systems away when his ships came under attack from vessels that shouldn't exist. The attacking ships looked like Zalathi designs, but they moved differently and fought with human tactics. Emergency transmission to Admiral Kethvar, Captain Mexhai broadcast as his convoy burned around him. Humans have somehow acquired faster-than-light capability. They're attacking our supply lines. Admiral Kethvar couldn't believe the reports. That's impossible. It took our species 2,000 years to develop FTL technology. These humans have had it for less than a century. Dr. Yenna provided the answer. They didn't develop it from scratch, she explained. They stole it from us, then improved it. Their FTL drives are now faster and more efficient than ours. The war was spreading beyond Sol. Human strike forces, using captured and modified Imperial ships, began hitting Zalathi installations throughout the sector. Their targets were carefully chosen: communication relays, supply depots, fuel processing stations. They weren't trying to conquer territory. They were systematically destroying the Empire's ability to maintain the siege. Human tactics were brutal and effective. They would appear from nowhere, destroy their target, and vanish before Imperial reinforcements could arrive. Each attack was coordinated with others happening simultaneously across multiple star systems. Admiral Kethvar watched his master plan crumble. Instead of crushing human resistance, his massive fleet was trapped in an extended siege that was draining Imperial resources across the entire sector. Worse, the humans were somehow winning. Sir, his intelligence officer reported, we've lost contact with 16 supply convoys, 8 communication stations, and 3 fuel depots. The humans are destroying our logistics faster than we can replace them. The final blow to Imperial confidence came when Admiral Kethvar's own flagship was attacked. Not by a human fleet, but by a single ship that appeared to be constructed entirely from captured Zalathi components. The attacking vessel moved like nothing in Imperial experience. It was faster than their fastest ships, more heavily armed than their dreadnoughts, and seemed to anticipate every Imperial tactic before it was implemented. During the battle, Admiral Kethvar received a transmission from the enemy ship. A human face appeared on his screen, calm and confident despite being outnumbered by hundreds of Imperial vessels. Admiral Kethvar, the human said, my name is Captain Marcus Webb. I wanted to thank you for the technology donation. We've put it to good use. Admiral Kethvar stared at the image. "You're flying one of our ships," Captain Webb smiled. "Actually, it's built from parts of 12 of your ships. We've made some improvements." "Would you like to see?" The human ship demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't be possible. It outran Imperial fighters, absorbed hits that should have destroyed it, and returned fire that punched through Imperial shields like they didn't exist. As Admiral Kethvar watched his flagship take damage from a ship built with his own technology, he finally understood what Dr. Yenna had tried to warn him about decades ago. Humans didn't just use technology, they transformed it into something entirely new. The prototype they had ignored had become their worst nightmare. 5 years had passed since the siege of Earth began. Admiral Kethvar sat in his command center, staring at reports that made no sense. According to his intelligence officers, humanity had achieved something impossible: technological parity with the Zelathi Empire. "This cannot be accurate," Admiral Kethvar said to his science advisor. "Our civilization has existed for 10,000 years. These humans have barely had spaceflight for a century." "Oh, Priot," the science advisor, a nervous Zelathi named Kexmo, pulled up holographic displays showing human ship designs. "Sir, the data is confirmed. Human vessels now match our capabilities in every category. In some areas, they have surpassed us." Admiral Kethvar studied the images with growing horror. The ships looked wrong. They combined Zelathi technology with design concepts that violated every principle of Imperial engineering. Yet somehow, they worked better than the originals. "How?" Admiral Kethvar demanded. "How did they advance so quickly?" Dr. Yenna, now ancient but still sharp, provided the answer via secure transmission from her laboratory. "Because they don't think like us, Admiral. We perfect a design and use it for centuries. They perfect a design, then immediately start working on ways to improve it. Every day, human technology becomes more advanced than it was the day before." The evidence was overwhelming. Human ships that had been primitive conversion jobs just years ago were now sleek, deadly vessels that outperformed Imperial dreadnoughts. Their weapons were more powerful, their shields were stronger, and their speed was unmatched. But the real shock came when Admiral Kethvar received a transmission from deep space. It was Captain Dex High, commanding a patrol fleet near the Empire's border with the Nexus Coalition. "Admiral," Captain Dex High reported, his voice filled with panic, "we're under attack by human forces." "But sir, they're not just using our technology anymore. They have weapons and tactics we've never seen before." The battle footage was terrifying. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, sharing information instantly across vast distances. Their weapons seemed to bend the laws of physics, striking targets through Imperial shields as if they weren't there. Most disturbing of all, they fought with a level of precision that suggested they knew exactly where every Imperial ship would be before it moved. "Admiral," Captain Dex High continued, "they're not fighting like primitives anymore. They're fighting like they can predict our every action." Admiral Kethvar realized with growing horror that Captain Dex High was right. Somehow, humans had gained access to Imperial tactical databases, communication codes, and operational procedures. They knew everything about Zelathi military doctrine. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Yextar, commanding the border station at Kepler 442, reported a disturbing discovery. Several of his crew members were not who they appeared to be. "Admiral, we've discovered Zelathi crew members who are actually humans in disguise. They've been here for months, maybe years, gathering intelligence and sabotaging our operations." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Imperial command structure. Humans had somehow modified themselves to look like Zelathi and had infiltrated Imperial installations throughout the Empire. Everything the Zelathi military did was being monitored and reported back to human command. Dr. Yenna's analysis was grim. "They've been studying us just as carefully as we've been studying them. The difference is that they've been learning while we've been dismissing them as threats." Admiral Kethvar finally did what he should have done 50 years earlier. He read Dr. Yenna's original report from beginning to end. Every prediction she had made was coming true. Humans adapted faster than any known species. They learned from every encounter. They improved continuously. They never accepted limitations. But what terrified Admiral Kethvar most was Dr. Yenna's final observation. They are not just another intelligent species. They represent a new form of evolution, one that transcends biological limitations through technology and determination. The war was no longer contained to the Sol system. Human forces were attacking Imperial installations across dozens of star systems simultaneously. Their operations were coordinated with surgical precision, targeting exactly the right facilities to cripple Imperial logistics and communication. Imperial Fleet Captain Rex High reported from the Andromedas sector. The humans hit our fuel processing station exactly when our reserve fleet needed refueling. It's like they knew our operational schedule better than we did. Another captain reported similar attacks. They destroyed our communication relay 30 minutes before we were supposed to receive new orders. Without communication, our entire fleet was paralyzed. Admiral Kethvar began to understand the scope of human intelligence gathering. They weren't just randomly attacking Imperial targets. They had detailed knowledge of every Imperial operation, every fleet movement, every strategic plan. The Empire's security had been completely compromised. The humans had been playing a much longer game than anyone realized. While the Empire focused on the siege of Earth, human forces had been systematically mapping Imperial territory, studying Zalathi tactics, and preparing for a coordinated counterattack across multiple fronts. Then came the revelation that changed everything. Intelligence Officer Keeks Pai brought Admiral Kethvar a captured human data device that contained the complete Imperial Fleet registry, communication codes, and strategic plans for the next decade. "Sir," Officer Kexpai reported, "they have been intercepting and decoding our communications for years. Every order we've sent, every plan we've made, every secret we've tried to keep, they know all of it." Admiral Kethvar stared at the data device in horror. The humans hadn't just been defending their home system. They had been conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. They knew the location of every Imperial world, the strength of every fleet, the weakness of every defense installation. Dr. Yenna's voice crackled over the communication system from her laboratory. "Admiral, you need to understand what has happened. The humans have not just reached technological parity with us, they have surpassed us in every way that matters. Innovation, adaptation, strategic thinking, and most importantly, unity of purpose." The proof came in the form of a human transmission broadcast on all Imperial frequencies. The image showed Admiral Sarah Chen, no longer young but still commanding, speaking from what appeared to be a massive space station built with advanced technology that the Empire couldn't identify. "Admiral Kethvar," Admiral Chen said, "for 5 years, you have besieged our home. You have threatened our families and tried to destroy our civilization. Now, it is our turn." Behind Admiral Chen, the camera showed vast construction bays filled with ships that looked like nothing in Imperial experience. They combined the best aspects of Zalathi technology with innovations that pushed beyond known limits. "We call this Operation Prometheus," Admiral Chen continued, "named after the ancient god who brought fire to humanity. You brought us the fire of advanced technology through your attacks. Now we will show you what humans do with fire." The transmission ended with coordinates for Imperial worlds throughout the sector, and a simple message: surrender now, or face the consequences of teaching humanity how to wage war. Admiral Kethvar realized that his empire faced something unprecedented. Not just another enemy species, but a civilization that had learned everything the Empire knew and improved upon it. The hunters were about to become the hunted. In his private quarters that night, Admiral Kethvar made a decision that would have been unthinkable just years before. He began drafting a communication to the Imperial Council, recommending immediate negotiation with the human forces. But as he worked on the message, reports began flooding in from across Imperial space. Human fleets were moving simultaneously toward dozens of Imperial worlds. Operation Prometheus had begun, and the Zalathi Empire was about to face the full fury of a species they had underestimated for far too long. The prototype they ignored had become an apex predator. Operation Prometheus began at exactly 0800 hours, Imperial Standard Time, across 300 star systems simultaneously. Admiral Kethvar watched in stunned silence as his communication board lit up with emergency transmissions from every corner of the Empire. "Sir," his communication officer reported, voice shaking. "We're receiving distress calls from Zalathi Prime, Nexus Station, the Kepler Defense Grid, and, sir, it's everywhere. They're attacking everywhere at once." Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display that showed the scope of the human attack. Red warning icons appeared across the entire map of Imperial space. This was not a military campaign. This was surgical dismantlement of an entire civilization. The reports flooding in defied belief. At Zalathi Prime, the Empire's capital world, a human fleet had appeared without warning and disabled the planetary defense grid in 17 minutes. They didn't destroy the planet's cities or harm civilians. Instead, they precisely targeted military installations, government centers, and communication hubs. Admiral Chen's voice echoed across Imperial communication channels. "Attention, all Zalathi forces. Your empire is finished. Surrender immediately, and no harm will come to your civilians. Resist, and face complete destruction." At the fortress world of Titan's Gate, Fleet Commander Rex Mar commanded the Empire's most powerful defensive position. His report to Admiral Kethvar was filled with terror. "Admiral, the humans are using our own defense systems against us. Somehow, they've taken control of our automated weapons and turned them on our own ships." Admiral Kethvar couldn't understand how this was possible. Imperial security systems had been perfected over thousands of years. How did they break our codes? Dr. Yenna provided the answer from her laboratory, her ancient voice carrying across the communication system one final time. "They didn't break our codes, Admiral. They've been listening to our communications for decades. They know every password, every protocol, every security measure we've ever used. They didn't defeat our systems. They simply used our own keys." Across the Empire, the pattern was the same. Human forces appeared at critical locations, disabled defenses using captured Imperial codes, and neutralized military resistance with overwhelming technological superiority. But they did something that shocked even seasoned Imperial veterans. They went out of their way to avoid civilian casualties. Captain Vex High, defending the mining world of Kepler 62b, reported an encounter that changed his understanding of warfare. "Admiral, the humans disabled our fleet, but when we evacuated to the planet's surface, they provided medical aid to our wounded. They're treating our injured better than we treat our own soldiers." This was not how wars were supposed to work. In Imperial history, conquered species were enslaved, eliminated, or absorbed. The humans were doing something unprecedented. They were dismantling military power while preserving civilian populations. The speed of the human advance was impossible to comprehend. Within 1 week, they had neutralized Imperial fleets throughout 50 star systems. Within 2 weeks, they controlled communication networks across half the Empire. By the end of the 3rd week, Zalathi military resistance had effectively ceased to exist. Admiral Kethvar found himself commanding a fleet that no longer had a government to serve. The Imperial Council had evacuated Zalathi Prime, the Emperor had fled to an unknown location, and the entire Imperial military command structure had collapsed. "Sir," his aide reported, "we've lost contact with Imperial Command. All communication networks are now under human control." Admiral Kethvar realized that he was witnessing something that had never happened in galactic history. The complete destruction of a galactic empire in less than a month. Not through brutal conquest, but through precision strikes that left the Empire unable to function as a military or political entity. The final phase of Operation Prometheus was the most shocking. Instead of occupying Imperial worlds, human forces began what they called restoration operations. They used captured Imperial genetic databases and historical records to resurrect species that the Empire had destroyed over the millennia. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now Director of Human Xenological Operations, explained their plan in a broadcast to all former Imperial territories. "The Zalathi Empire destroyed thousands of civilizations over 10,000 years. We have recovered their genetic patterns, their cultural records, and their historical data. Where possible, we will restore these civilizations to life. Admiral Kethvar watched in amazement as human science teams began reconstructing entire species from preserved genetic material. Worlds that had been barren for centuries suddenly bloomed with life as humans carefully restored destroyed ecosystems and reintroduced extinct species. The humans weren't just winning the war. They were undoing millennia of imperial conquest and genocide. At Zelathi Prime, Admiral Chen established what she called the Galactic Restoration Council. Representatives from every surviving species, including Zelathi civilians, were invited to participate in rebuilding galactic civilization. "We are not here to replace the Empire with human rule," Admiral Chen announced. "We are here to ensure that no species ever again faces extinction at the hands of tyrants." Admiral Kethvar received an invitation to attend surrender negotiations on a neutral world. When he arrived, he found something that changed his understanding of humanity forever. The negotiation chamber contained representatives from dozens of species that should have been extinct. Through advanced genetic reconstruction and historical research, humans had brought back civilizations that the Empire had destroyed centuries ago. "Admiral Kethvar," Admiral Chen said as he entered the chamber, "I'd like you to meet the representatives of the Altair Confederacy, the Vega Alliance, and the Proxima Republic. Your empire declared them extinct. We decided they deserved a second chance." The surrender terms were unlike anything in military history. Zelathi military forces would be disbanded, their weapons confiscated, and their warships converted to peaceful purposes. But Zelathi civilians would be relocated to comfortable reservation worlds where they could live freely under human protection. "Why?" Admiral Kethvar asked Admiral Chen during a private meeting. "Why spare us? We tried to exterminate your species." Admiral Chen looked at him with eyes that had seen too much war. "Because we're not you, Admiral. We don't destroy entire civilizations because we can. We protect life, even the lives of our enemies." The Zelathi Empire officially ceased to exist after exactly 3 months and 2 days of human military operations. In its place, humans established the Galactic Restoration Alliance, dedicated to preserving species diversity and preventing future genocides. Dr. Yenna, now ancient beyond her species' normal lifespan, lived just long enough to see the transformation complete. In her final report, she wrote, "I spent my life studying alien species, trying to understand what made them unique. I finally found the answer in humanity. They are not just another intelligent species. They are evolution's answer to extinction." On every human installation throughout former imperial space, a simple inscription was carved in multiple languages. "Never again will intelligence be ignored. Never again will potential be wasted." Years later, as Admiral Kethvar lived quietly on the Zelathi reservation world of New Zelathia, he often thought about Dr. Yenna's original report. She had warned that humans were different from any species the Empire had encountered. She had predicted that they would become unstoppable if given time to grow. But even Dr. Yenna hadn't predicted the most remarkable thing about humanity: their refusal to become what they defeated. They had gained the power to destroy civilizations, but instead chose to restore them. The prototype the Empire had ignored didn't just survive, it transformed the galaxy into something better than anyone had imagined possible. In the end, humanity had won more than a war. They had won the right to shape the future of galactic civilization. And unlike every empire that had come before them, they chose to use that power to protect life rather than destroy it. The galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in 10,000 years, it would be safe for new civilizations to grow and flourish, protected by the species that had learned the true cost of ignoring potential and had promised to never let it happen again.